few days ago, a man came to me and asked me if I thought it was okay to, if a child was severely deformed, if it would be okay to end their life. And I've heard that question or similar questions over the last 30-some years when I started speaking out for the unborn child and for the helpless. And over the years, there's a lot of things have come to me, but as a student of Scripture, I find that the Scripture very clearly tells me that what I think really doesn't matter. What does God say? What does He tell us in His Word? And in His Word, it's very clear that children are His. He opens and closes the womb, and He decides if a woman will be pregnant or not pregnant. He decides if the child is going to have some severe deformity or if it's going to be what we would call a perfect child. That's His decision to make. He does it for whatever purpose, and I don't presume to know what His purpose is other than He has a purpose. He has He has an infinite mind. I have a finite mind. And so therefore, His thoughts are so much higher than mine, and I can't begin to judge. All I can say is, what does He say? And He says that He has a purpose for every child. Scripture tells us about a man who was born blind and who, for God's glory, when he became a grown man, his blindness was healed. Another man was lame from birth, and that lameness was corrected as a mature man for God's purposes. So who am I to say what purpose God has for a severely deformed child or for a blind child or whatever the problem might be, mentally retarded or what have you? That's not my decision. I know that for years people have said, well, a child can needs to be destroyed because they're going to have some particular problem. God decides what is going to be done, how He wants to use that deformity for His purposes, or how He's going to use that mental retardation for His purposes. He knows what He's doing. He makes the decisions. We don't. And I've heard so many arguments about, well, it's okay to, as an example, kill a child in the womb, and yet Scripture says very clearly that, as an example, it says, if men strive and hurt a woman with child, in other words, she's pregnant, so that her child depart from her, and yet no harm, no death follows, the man shall be punished. But if the baby dies, then you shall give life for life. The man shall lose his life because he caused the death of that child that was actually, it wasn't born, it was born prematurely because of the man striking her. So this God believes that when a child is still inside the womb, it's still a child. And so at conception, life begins, and that life, God decides how He's going to form it, if it's going to be a boy, if it's going to be a girl, if it's going to be just blonde, beautiful, or deformed. His decision. So what I think really doesn't matter. What does the Bible say? What does God say as far as the children go? As far as later in life, talking about euthanasia. The people, they're old and they're no longer valuable to society. Well, what is value? The value might be that individual may have some knowledge that they pass on to their progeny, that they could have a purpose, whatever the purpose might be. We don't know. I happen to have a mother who would live 106 years old. She was still ambulatory. She had her mind about her. She was able to counsel people of all ages, and people at her funeral, over 300 people were there to mourn their loss. So she had, but she was 106 years old. She should have not been considered valuable to society anymore. But she had a tremendous impact on literally thousands of people. So who's to say when a life is no longer productive? Who's to say whether they have any value? God's decision. It's his child, no matter if it's a child in the womb or if it's a 106-year-old person, it's still his child, and it's his decision as to when that child should be, when that child's life should end. It's not for us to decide.